Okay, what is going on, guys? We are live, back with another one. Okay, let's hop into this. I'm gonna start off with some worship.
Yes, you are worthy, Jesus, the only one who's worthy. unto you, the slain and risen King. We lift our voice with heaven, singing worthy, Lord of all, Lord of all.
Okay, so in this one, I want to talk about how to know you entered a new season, because this is important because certain seasons have different protocols. Entering a season, a different season, you could have a certain protocol that worked in that season. Let's just say, for example, moving in silence, having your head down, being focused, kind of just headstrong, head down, and running forward. That could be one season. The next season could be bracing and just, fighting through the tempest, fighting through the storm. Or it could be just, wave after wave after wave after wave. And it's important to know the season that you're in, because you could have another season where, yes, you need to be focused, but you also need to have humility, and you also need to have your eyes open. Because if you start moving in a brand new season with that same old of head down, storm forward, and you crush somebody who you were meant to link with or have a relationship with, or you were supposed to be introduced with, like if you have your head down in a season and you're not supposed to have your head down, you could miss some valuable things. So it's important to have sensitivity inside of the spirit. And I am just gonna, yes, it is important to have sensitivity inside of the spirit, because a lot of people, they go about life and they are just the same through and through. But different seasons require different divine instructions from the Lord of how to navigate it, because seasons change and you have to change with it as well. And usually when you can tell that there is a start of a new season, you're usually at the end of yourself. You can feel weak, you can feel drained, you can feel like, something just has to give. What's inside of you can just not continue forward. It's usually a standstill where you need to self-reflect. There needs to be self-reflection. Like, God will make sure that you are in a standstill of self-reflection. And usually a new season starts with uncertainty, maybe anxiety. Anxiety is not from the Lord, but just like an unknown factor. Maybe you start praying way more than you would have previously. And the reason being is because you need new wine. You need new equipping for that season, because there's different factors. You have to alter your behavior because there's different pieces ahead of you, right? And if you navigate it in that old wine, with that old wine skin, it's just going to be rigid, grueling. You're not really going to flow into it, and it's going to be more so of a grind, and it's not really going to be as flowy. You're not going to flow into it, and it's going to be, you're going to feel like you're just, you have a whole bunch of extra baggage that you are carrying into the new season, because things have to die off. Things have to fall off of you, and God will usually have a standstill moment. Now, what is a standstill? So seasons are different. Some seasons we are building, we are extremely busy, and then some seasons we are isolated, getting revelation, getting wisdom, just connecting with the Lord, getting new revelation, new downloads, new game plans, kind of just navigating and figuring out how we're going to move forward and what's the next game plan, because things only work in a certain season. Let's just say, for example, the last season that I was in, I had a certain game plan of divine instruction that I used, and it worked wonderfully. Now, if I continued in that approach in this season, I can tell it's just completely different, and it wouldn't work to my benefit, right? It wouldn't work to my benefit. And you always have to change the narrative, because like I said, for example, in one season, if you are building, you are going to be focused, you are going to preserve your energy, you're not going to open doors, you're just going to be going to and fro building, right? Head down, kind of this mean mugging mentality, not actually mean mugging, but just focused on what you have to do, sowing those seeds, right? And if you are just marching forward like a soldier like that into a brand new season where, you know, maybe it's a different approach where, yes, you still need to be focused, but you need humility, because in this season, relationships are going to come into play, right? And if you storm forward with your head down and kind of have like this closed off approach, you could miss the whole narrative, right? A lot of some seasons are just about maybe some self-independence building. Other seasons are more relational, to where you got to be more open and work together, and it's all different. And that's why it's important to take heed. But one of the indicators that you are in a new season is you probably feel depleted, probably feel like you have nothing left to give. Like, this is it. And it just means that you are at a standstill. There's nothing more to give. So now it's time to receive. It's time to be poured into, which could be isolation, which could be spending time with the Lord, which could be just not fast paced. Because when you have when you have like no creativity, you don't feel inspired, you don't feel the need to do X, Y, and Z, then the Lord is telling you that it's time to hone in. It's time to, rein it back in. And when it's at a standstill, when it's a slow season, it's usually because you need a new game plan for what's to come. You need to let go of that old wine. The old things that worked in the old season need to die off, and you need to adjust to what is coming up ahead. And it usually is just a screeching halt of, you're tired, you're drained, you don't want to do anything, maybe you don't even have any creativity, don't want to go live, don't want to do this, don't want to do that. Is grueling. It's like God is screeching you to a stop, because what you have doesn't work, and he needs to sit you down to spend time with the Lord, to get that new revelation, to get that new wisdom, that new divine instruction, and to just receive downloads and be poured into for what is to come. Instead of just grinding yourself to a fine powder, because that's just not the way to go about things. That's just not the way to go about things. And it's really important to receive revelation, or to, grinding all the time could actually slow down your progress, could actually slow down many facets of your life, as if that's just your non-stop approach. because sometimes you will take shortcuts. You will move way faster by switching up your approach to where things are much smoother. For example, if you're just grinding, doing things by yourself continually, and then one season you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to open myself up, and you open yourself up to a relationship that is a business deal, that's a shortcut that just takes you where you never would have went by yourself. Or if you had your head down, just grinding, planting these seeds and doing those types of things. So it's definitely important to be aware. It's definitely important to be aware and to have that new wine, to receive that new revelation. And that's how you can tell it is a new season, because everything is like calm waters. It feels like there's nothing to do. It's the boringest thing in the world. It's like the Lord has nothing for you to do, right? Nothing's appealing. The things that used to be appealing, of, going to the gym, doing videos, doing this, doing that, going to this place, sewing here, like, it's just all out of calm, right? And you don't want to do none of that. And it's just like God will screech you to a halt so he can pour into you, because the Lord and the Holy Spirit is the beginning and the end. So to know your next steps, because the Lord goes ahead of you, right? And his angels go ahead of you to know what's next, or to be prepared for what is next. The Lord needs to configure you, right? And that's why a lot of the times when you enter into a new season, it's a standstill, and there usually is a lot of prayer. And I believe the reason for that is because in prayer, that is you entering the spiritual, right? It's no longer physical. It's you connecting to the heavenly realms to either break things off of you, whether you're speaking in tongues or just praying to God, or following along in different prayers that you feel led to, right? When you're entering into a new season, there's usually, a necessity for prayer, to equip yourself in the spirit, to break things off in the spirit, or fasting, right? To make more powerful prayers, or whatever it may be. But there's usually an equipping. There's usually a necessity to pray, and the necessity to build, the necessity to be in this constant go is reduced. And I know, like, we all want to be productive. Listen, I know myself, a lot of us, we start to beat ourselves down when it's like, I got to be productive. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to toil myself to the bone, which is just not effective at all. Because if you're moving with the Lord, the amount of shortcuts you could take if you had divine wisdom, right? Heavenly advice, right? Because there's a way that seems right to man, but in the end it leads to death. And the way that seems right to man is just grind, productivity. But seriously, just taking some time, absorbing, praying, getting some revelation, could knock years off of your life, if we're being honest, instead of just going in the flesh and blood. No divine instruction, not really knowing what you're doing. And it kind of had me thinking. There's this kid at the gym. And usually this is my approach. It's just when I'm at the gym, I'm not there for conversation, obviously, because it's a gym, and I usually have my head down, and I'm just there to work out. That's it. And then I'm finished, and then I'm done. And then I got a different game plan. And then I started to actually apply that. And I noticed that this kid was like kind of doing the same thing that I used to do, which is just, hyper fixated, focused on what you got to do. And his head wasn't up. And it seemed like disrespectful, like bumping into people, not really, having his head up to relationships, right? There's times where you need your head down to build your own thing, what you got going on. But when your head's down, when you're so focused, when you're just in this realm of putting these building blocks together, you're not really focused on relationships. And sometimes relationships are more important than just being super laser focused and closed off. And sometimes being open is way more beneficial, right? And it takes this sensitivity, and if you don't stop, you can miss out on destiny helpers, right? For example, if God's sending people in your life to aid you, to be your ally, to give you help, to give you a hand, and your head's down and you're just productive and you're focused and you're going to and fro and you're just out of the loop and you're just trying to, you're just grinding yourself to the bone, you can miss out on a multitude of things. And also you could mess up a lot of things and just be that rigid part in that system if you don't know the times, if you're not aware of the rhythm, of the flow of how things are going. Now, this may sound silly to a lot of people, but like having oil, having that new wine, is that speed on your life, is those shortcuts, is do this instead of that, instead of just, this grueling, trailblazing effort. But yeah, it's definitely important to catch on to the seasons, because listen, different seasons require a new you, and like previously, before, it was just one of me and that's all there would ever be. But when pieces start to move, when you're entering in that uncertainty, the Lord's moving, he's putting pieces into place and you're uncertain and you're not really sure, you can't just be the same person, or you could get bounced out of the equation, or you could just be in another waiting season if you do not flow into it, right? Because the thing with the Lord is, if you're not prepped, if you're not ready, he's not going to thrust you into something when you're ill prepared, when you're not ready, because it would destroy you and it would be your own self-destruction. The Lord is just, obviously, and he wants you to be equipped, and he wants you, obviously he's not going to give you the full game plan, he's not going to have a huge floodlight, but he is a lamp to your feet. He will give you that next step, and he wants you to be prepared for that next step, right? And if you're not prepared for that next step, then you're taking 2 steps back, which is just decreasing your progress in the spiritual, in the physical, and literally just taking some time. If you feel like, hey, life is at a standstill, if and you're just itching for things to do, but it feels like there's nothing. It feels like there's nothing. Before, it was like, I'm super busy, I got to do this, I got to do that, and then after that, I got to do this, and then, you got to understand, there's certain seasons of building, of sowing, of reaping. There's times of just sowing into places so you could reap in the next season, or just feeding your energy into certain places, or helping certain people, so down in the future, what you sowed, people will come to now help you because you sowed that in the past. God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts, or even sowing money, right? Sowing money into certain establishments, certain places. Maybe God's like, you got a week or you got a month of just, sowing money into where the Lord wants you to sow it, right? Because if you freely give, you'll freely receive. It says that the righteous, they freely give and they have more than enough. And that is so true. I keep giving money away and it's just more money. It doesn't even, it literally, and it's spiritual law, right? It says, there's scriptures that say if you are stingy, you will lose everything. If you are stingy, you will lose everything. And it's because God provides seed to the sower. And a sower is somebody who lets go. And he provides the seed to the sower who lets go. So he'll keep providing if you keep sowing. And there's just some seasons. And it also says that he will multiply that seed. So, you know, God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And there's seasons where you will be building. And there's seasons where you need to be resting. And it's actually detrimental for you to be super productive beyond belief, because there's something ahead of you that you need rest for. And if you're not rested, you're going to enter that depleted, lacking, and not prepared. And it's just going to blow you over. And that opportunity was, you know, it's way more important than you diddly and daddling in the now. And that's why it is, I'm not saying to be super hyper focused on seasons, because previously I'm like, okay, I don't even know what season it is. I don't even know what's going on. Like, God, I have absolutely no idea. But after a while, you know, you can tell when things are like, you know, when you begin to start to pray more and more and more, right? Because this means that you are lenient on God, right? Because God is your tomorrow. He is the beginning and he is the end, Genesis to Revelation. So you start praying to God because you don't know what's next. So you have this necessity, not really out of nervousness, but just this uncertainty, to where you start to pivot into God. You start to lean into God. And you do not know why. The reason being is because you need spiritual equipping. You need that new wine. You need that new wine. And the only way to get that new wine is through the Lord, right? And that's why when there is a new season, there will be this isolation. Usually there is this standstill of just receiving, whether reading scriptures, downloads, just maybe even some rest, to just be equipped for when things pick back up and you have the oil, you have the flame to hit all of those targets that are ahead, right? Properly, instead of just not resting at all. And then, you know, if an archer doesn't rest and he's just constantly firing, constantly firing, constantly firing, constantly firing, constantly firing, constantly firing, you know, eventually it's just going to be way off and not effective at all. And it even says that it is vain for you to wake up early and go to bed extremely late, because God gives sleep to the ones he loves. Now, I'm not saying do not wake up early and do not go to bed late, but I'm just saying doing that continually, extremely early, extremely late, like grinding yourself to the bone, after a while is just, and especially if it's not in the right season, in a season where you're supposed to be resting, and you're not resting, and then you enter into a breakthrough or your opportunity unrested, and you just completely sabotage the opportunity. Like, it's important to be sensitive to the spirit, because you will be more productive, right? Even God rested on the seventh day. Even God rested on the seventh day, the Sabbath day. And now, sometimes simply just receiving, right? You have nothing to give if you are not receiving. If you are not receiving, you have no direction. If you're not receiving, if you're not taking time to receive downloads, to receive information, to read the scriptures, to get some wisdom, then you'll just be leaning on your own understanding eventually. Right? And leaning on your own understanding is simply just not receiving from the Lord. Sometimes you got to receive from the Lord, or you'll just be relying on your own strength, your own flesh and blood, your own rigid system, and leaning on your own understanding. And there's a way that seems right to man that leads to death, right? And if you're just constantly in that place that seems right to man, what seems right to man is just, constantly checking the box, constantly checking the box, constantly checking the box, constantly checking the box. But it's crucial to understand the seasons, because it even says in the scriptures, there's a time for building up and there's a time for plucking out, and there's a time for war, there's a time for peace, there's a time for everything under the sun. Not just a time for continually building up, not just every single day continually building up, because then it becomes not that efficient. Because if you're continually in this hyper competitive overdrive, you will develop greed, you will develop covetousness, you will develop these emotions that will inevitably probably make you lose it all. Right? Self-sabotage, self-destruction, self-affliction, just burning out, and there's no longevity. There's no longevity to it at all. And that's the main thing, is longevity. Not just hopping in a car for as long as possible. Not changing the oil, not changing anything inside of the vehicle, right? Continually being like, well, this has to be the best way. And you're just doing that all the way to a 2-hour location, thinking that you're going to get there faster. So it's important to know the season, especially and usually what I believe, it's you coming to the end of yourself, maybe lacking strength, lacking motivation, running on this old wine, running on this old rigid system that is not working for you anymore. This same old mindset. While your environment's changing, while the spiritual realm is changing, while relationships are changing, while the Lord is creating a new atmosphere, new relationships, all these different things, and you're just in this rigid same way of being. Sometimes you need new wine to just flow into it. And I think of it like, some seasons are just like conversations, right? If you're entering a room, entering a new season, and you just have smooth conversations with everybody there, some businessmen, all of these people, kings, all of that. It's just a smooth conversation. You got oil, you got laughter, you got joy, everything's going good. Things are going to work in your favor, right? But if you just storm through the door, right, and you're just like, drained, depleted, out of breath in this season, and there's just friction, the conversation's not really going your way, then yeah, it's not that great. But it's definitely important to move with the Lord, and understand the seasons. Because sometimes There's is times where he wants to sit you down to prepare you for something that's coming up ahead that's going to be taxing. Maybe a battle, maybe, very challenging, uphill, all of these different things. And the Lord needs to equip you, needs to train you, needs to prune you, needs to purge you, needs to clean you, needs to just spend time with you, give you some revelation, a new game plan that's going to benefit you, because simply having certain game plans in seasons saves and preserves so much energy. A simple perspective shift in a season could save you so much energy, to where you're so much more effective, and it's not as taxing on your energy. It's not as taxing on your spirit, right? Doing things robotically without wisdom will just wear you thin. But having a game plan, divine instruction, divine wisdom would make the exact same thing that much easier. And I just think about this, like somebody going into the gym, right? And they just have all these open doors with so many different people. They're trying to get a workout in, talking to all these different people that they don't even know. They're like, hey, what's going on? Hey, what's going on? And they're trying to appeal to this person, and they're trying to appeal to this person, and they're bending and conforming for this person. This person's draining their energy, and every time they got to go into a set, they're being interrupted. They got to talk to this person, all of these different things. They're still going to the same gym. They're still going to work out. And then you have the other guy who's just silent. All closed doors, there to work out. Same thing, different game plan, different perspective, different ways of being, but much more efficient with just a different perspective. And the other person is just, let's just grind, let's just get it done, not really walking in wisdom. And walking in wisdom is the most important thing. And where do you get wisdom from? The Lord, right? The Lord. So wisdom is important. Wisdom is important, and that's why rest, that's why revelation, that's why just getting downloads, spending some time, going for a walk, just having these conversations is important. And he is stopping you for a reason, because he is the beginning and he is the end, and he has plans for you that are already established before you were, when you were, before or whatever, when you were knitted in the womb. He already knew your purpose, already knew your plans. It's already laid out. So if he's stopping you to connect with you, there's a reason for it. And if you just say, now I'm going to lean on my own understanding because you know best, then it's very foolish. It's not wise. So yeah, I highly recommend. I know we live in a very, go after it, go get it. And I have been the same way, but it's just not effective. It's just not effective. Knowing the seasons and being spirit-led makes you that much more effective. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. But yeah, in new seasons, there's times where you have to drop things off and you have to learn new things to your own advantage to make things easier for yourself. And only the Lord knows what you need. Only the Lord knows what you need in that new season. But no, it's definitely important to be balanced. And I'm not talking about self-balance. I'm talking about balance with the Lord. Like if you're trying to move forward, trying to grind forward, trying to do all of these things, but you're just like, you know what? Like I just don't want to do this. I'm lacking strength. I'm not motivated for this. Like, I just don't feel like doing that. But you're trying to force yourself. It's clearly, sometimes the Lord will have his hand on you to keep you at a standstill, to just keep you in that place so he can communicate with you. Sometimes you cannot move forward until you receive something from the Lord. And that's what a lot of people have to be aware of. And that's why it's important to even have a relationship with the Lord, because a lot of people, they're like, well, I'm bored, so I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to find some other alternative. I gotta love when people just start texting you right when you're live every single time. Gotta love that. But yeah, it's important to know the seasons. And also, you will receive so much more from tuning in from the Lord of how to maneuver, how to operate, boundaries, who's draining, who's, what's next, what's not, where to maneuver, where not to maneuver, what's beneficial, what's not beneficial, what step to take, what to drop off. Like, simply receiving from the Lord is important. Receiving from the Lord. But that is how you know if you are in a new season, is those stand stills where you're not building. You don't feel like you're expanding. And you feel like everything is quite settled and there's just time. A lot of people would say, I'm bored. There's time to do this. There's time to do that. There's time to do whatever, but it's the Lord wanting your time. Whether there's something that needs to be imparted, something that